Hi, I'm Ryan. This is kind of like a little quick paint along kind of thing that I want to do. Um, I will show you kind of some of my tricks that I've learned within the 2 months of me painting. I've sped up the footage just because I, at this time, cannot sit here and talk for 28 minutes. So, basically, first thing that I do is I'll start with basing my entire model. In this case, it's just the shield because this is a shield that will sit on the back of a Blade Guard veteran, and I'll paint that separately just because it makes it easier. Um, the the first step usually for me is to prime it, and I just use an air gun for that, air sprayer, whatever, airbrush. That's what it is. I use an airbrush for that. Run my primer across it, let it dry for an hour just to be safe. Um, and then usually I'll thin paints as I paint. So, like, you can see that I'm doing a whole lot of brush work right there. And that's just because I don't want to glob, especially on the inside skulls, because I still want the back side, like the background of the skulls in the shield, to be black. And once you kind of like go too far and like accidentally paint the back of that black, it becomes really hard to undo that. I mean, yeah, you could paint it black again, but you're gonna have to let it sit there and dry and then redo the skull coloration. So I go ahead and get the sides all done because blue's gonna be the base color. Now, I haven't started yet, but kind of, I've got a airbrush set up for painting. Since I do ultramarines, painting them blue with an airbrush, and then I'll touch up the black spots later. But when it's stuff like this, where I want black to be in the background of the like small objects, then I will usually go ahead and just prime it black. Now, you can see that I'm a sloppy painter to a degree. When I'm working with trying to do things like this, I don't care if other parts get painted wrong because I can always go back and redo it. You've actually seen my other technique that I wanted to talk about in this video, and you'll see me do it throughout the video. It is using like another one of my fingers, or I've used my pinky before, and I've used my thumb like I did a little bit ago to help stabilize the brush, just because sometimes getting into really small areas like I'm in right now is a huge pain. It is such a pain. And a little bit of extra stabilization does help. I'm using a very tiny brush. If I can't remember what the brush size is, but I mean, it's more shaped like a pencil, less like those weird little indentations or whatever the heck they are on the bigger brushes. But I just sorry, I just wanted to paint the shield up real quick, kind of showing how I do it, especially since Blade Guard vets are more than they are my favorite units. And I was so happy with how the first one turned out. I started working on the next one not too far after. I don't know why my camera does this fuzziness. I think it's just because it's trying to focus on my hand. I use a phone for a camera because, I mean, that's all I got. So, sorry. I fight a lot of focusing issues. Now, in order for me to actually paint like this and try to keep it in view good, I basically have to be like an inch away from where the camera is on my phone. That way I know the camera sees it well. I'm basically painting with one eye right now. So you'll actually notice cut that. You'll actually notice that I am just trying to like not mess up anything. Just because, I mean, yeah, I'm a sloppy painter when it comes to like painting small details. I'll get like the gold trim that I'll get all over the rest of the shield. But like I said, it's perfectly fine. I'll just go back, hit it with the blue, call it good. So these little skull indentation things are kind of a pain if you don't have such tiny brushes like I do, because those tiny brushes really help out in those really, really hard to get spots. That's how I did the belt buckle, the belt buckle on the last Blade Guard vet, and how I did the little belt end loop thing. I don't know what it's called, but I painted those metallic. Now, speaking of metallic, I'm gonna switch to metallic paints here pretty soon because I'm gonna do the gold trim. Now, what I do the same thing the way I thin my paints. I mix I think it's a 2-to-1 ratio of acrylic rose gold and Vallejo gold, just because the acrylic pro adds the color and the Vallejo gold adds that glimmer that it does so well. So I'll test it. I'll get it all mixed up, test it on my own hand before I do it, and you'll actually see me glob up a couple times because metallic paint is a little bit more hard or a little bit more of a pain to work with. My camera is having trouble focusing right now, I can see. And also, by the way, I do all this stuff voiceover because I cannot talk and paint at the same time. Again, my camera is focusing on my hand, and I should have set like an object for it to focus on that would have been about the same background as the rest of this. So, sorry about that. But, so, I get all this done, and you can see that I just checked the thinness of my paint on the backside of my hand, or backside of my thumb, excuse me, and I mean, it's going on well. Sometimes with metallic paints, it looks like it'll go on, and it looks like you'll have that shine, especially in the light, but sometimes it won't, and it'll still have gray underneath it. You just catch the glimmer of the Vallejo paint, and these little itty bitty spots, like there's a couple of them up there, and I did my best not to get any of the gold into the shield itself, just because again, it'd be a giant pain to have to repaint those skulls because they are not an easy to get places. And a lot of times when I'm painting like this, and these markings stick out from the base model, obviously, so I can usually just kind of like get as flat as I can, and I'll run the brush over the top of the pieces that I'm trying to paint. Now, and you'll see when, I guess I had to touch up a couple, oh yeah, I did have to touch up those spots. And you'll see when I do the edge lining of the shield that I basically run my brush flat. Like I'll go completely sideways like this, as like trying to just watch the tip of my brush and try to keep it away from that line just so it edges around the whole shield. And you can actually see there I globbed a little bit too much metallic paint on that top right corner, and I used it to finish painting. Like I used it instead of my brain's not working. I used it instead of going to the palette. Then I did notice that one of the eyes in the big skull was not colored correctly. The white had filled in. So I went ahead and got the smallest brush that I have and put a little dab of black in there. So I continue going around the edges for the gold. Now sometimes gold will require more than one, it's not trim, more than one layer. So some people do one or two. I usually do one just because I lay it on a little bit thicker, because I'm not like, when I say I'm thinning paints, I'm not like barely putting anything on. You'll see me do a little bit of extra, like I'm doing right now, just to touch up, because I'm noticing spots that aren't shining as well as others are, and I just like to have a kind of like equal spread of layers. That way it looks about the same across the entire shield. Now, this little thing I have in my hand is very useful, but when like painting the other Blade Guard Veteran that I put a short out on, that apparently had an audio issue, and I would lay him down and just keep him steady on the table while I used my other hand to help kind of keep the brush from doing anything wild, because I got shaky hands. You can see it. There's no way you cannot see that I've got some shakiness to my hands. So at this point, most of the shield is done, and now we just have to paint the banners, or I'm sorry, the prayers. So I use Vallejo, Wraithbone, I think it is. I'm not sure. I will probably list a paint color scheme to this in the description. But I use Vallejo on a lot of my stuff. There's some pro acrylic that I also use that I like. The prayer things, I always paint once, and then I'll probably paint it a second time just to make sure it gets good in coverage, because those can sometimes be a real pain to make sure that the paint looks good on there. And those I make sure I let dry for a good period of time, because I have prayer like writings. I don't know how other people do it, but I have a transfer sheet that I bought off of Etsy that has like little scribbles, and they're supposed to be like the prayers. So as you can see, I am mixing my 2-to-1 ratio. Actually, I think it's more of a 3-to-1 ratio. I'm not 100% sure. Of black and red paint to make the wax seals. So I get finished and get this mixed up real quick, and I usually paint the seals in about that shade, but this time I wanted these a little bit brighter. If I gotta redo the seals on my minis, I'll redo them. They're very small. They're not super difficult to hit. The way I paint these real quick, super easy, is like I did with the gold. Kind of get sideways with it, and then after I paint sideways, I'll try to get into the like little skull insignia. It can be a pain sometimes. It just can be. Once I get this done, I'll move on to the other two. And again, fighting a focusing issue with this dumb phone. But hopefully I'll be able to get something to record a little bit better than my cell phone. So I get this finished up. I'm super happy with the way this shield turned out. Hopefully, if you're painting the same kind of thing, you've done as good. Probably better than I have, because I don't find myself as that great of a painter. Every person who paints something will always see the flaws in what they've painted, and the other people will usually see the beauty in what they've painted. Because I can sit here and pick out a bunch of flaws on this thing. I usually do paint the back sides of these shields, but obviously this took 20 minutes to do before being sped up. Actually, I think it was 30. Hopefully your shield has turned out better than mine. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.